Well, it's been wet and warm, and wet and warm, of course, means lots of growth. So there's a few things to harvest today, but I thought I'd show you around, see what's growing, and got a bit of damage on a couple of things. So we'll have a look at that. And well, I've had lots of viewer feedback and fantastic. I have some fantastic viewers and they've come up with some really good and important information about my Hugelkultur bed. So we'll be taking a bit of a look at that. You may have seen from my last video, I had a bit of a sort through it to establish what was going on, and it wasn't all good news, but I've had some great information and I think I know what I'm going to do next, but we'll come to that. So let's have a look round. Well, I'm always excited to look at the squash and the pumpkin, but just take a look at that. It's absolutely covered the rockery that I put together for the pond. I think the pond life really loves it because it's offering quite a lot of shade. It's feeling very natural, I think. This massive squash plant here, I found it quite difficult to see any squash in amongst it, but today I noticed at the ends there seemed to be some squash forming, and whether that's because they're a bit more in the light, I don't know, or maybe there's lots of those in there and I just can't see them. I'll have a quick look round, see what's been going on, but the one that I'm really keeping an eye on is my small sugar, because that's my favourite. And I looked in here because I know there's one in here. And yeah, just look, the size is growing considerably over the last week or so. So that's good news. There's one that's fallen off there, and that happens when, unfortunately, they don't get pollinated, but the chickens can have that one. There we go. And in here, there's quite a few more of those fairly large pumpkins. That one's starting to get going, which is nice. And this one, I think, let's pull this round. This one is red warty thing, and that's one of the ones I was really excited to get cracking, and it's really good to see that we've got a good pumpkin going there. This one I've terminated quite a lot of the runners, and I've got quite a lot of pumpkins growing on it now. Everywhere you look you can see another one, but they're small. We need a spell of some reasonably warm weather, and then things can really get cracking. This of course is a courgette, and I'm going to be harvesting him today because he's well and truly the size that we need. Okay, let's just try and get over there. It's a bit of a stretch. See what we've got. So under here, not much, to be honest. Not much I can see anyway. I'll take a giant leap, get in here, and yeah, there's quite a lot of foliage, but not too many squash or pumpkins. And the thing is, you can look in here for a long time and not find anything, but we'll see. Right now, no urgency. We just need some warm weather in August. An amazing crop of Jostaberries, and I gave them a fairly heavy prune because, well, they were getting quite big. They do get vigorous, and I was looking at the Jostaberries today and thinking we ought to be near harvest time, but there just aren't any, and I'm not sure why. I've got a sneaking suspicion that the birds are polishing them off, because we've certainly seen birds having a go at the red currants and also the black currants. So, don't know. There doesn't seem to be much in there to harvest. So I don't think there'll be any Jostaberry jam this year. And, well, maybe we'll be looking at blackberries next for our jam out of the hedgerow. I have been warned about this horseradish, which I haven't yet pulled out, but the warning is be careful because it does take over. So I think I might be getting that out pretty soon. Just over this side you can see how more squash and pumpkins are developing, and these might turn out to be fairly small, but to be honest, I don't mind that. There's, you know, you get an enormous pumpkin, and unless you're making pumpkin pie where you puree it, then, you know, if you want to roast one, it's a fairly medium-sized one that I would pick preferably. So who knows, they may just turn out perfect. Nice show of calendula over there in the back of the flower bed. And the flower bed's, well, it's in a transforming sort of state. There's an awful lot of sweet peas which have gone to seed, which is amazing because I can keep all that seed. And this fuchsia's come out nicely, which is good. It was only very small. You can see there's quite a lot of red currant still in there. So I think we've still got a red currant picking to come. And I was looking at my apple trees that I put in now 2 years ago, and they're starting to get shape now, which is good news because I can then spend time just shaping them a bit further and deciding how I want them to look. I mean, this would come off, for example, and some of these are a bit one-sided, so we can work on those. I've actually got some apples on these, which is nice, but not really for eating at the moment because it's such a young tree. And I notice we've got quite a lot of damage there, and I'm not sure where that's come from. It looks like it could be the graft, but I don't know, we'll see. It's not come from the pole, but the plant looks reasonably healthy, and that's the main thing. And the rhubarb's still soldiering on, and if we wanted, we could take more rhubarb, but to be honest, the freezer is full of it. It's been amazing, continue to be amazing. Look at the size of that. There'll be some of those coming out today, I think. There's just so many, it's continual, and we're making really good use of them. There's lots of variety, and people are suggesting things all the time, and we're trying them. And to be honest, the variety is great. You can do an awful lot with courgettes, and they can overwhelm you as well. But nonetheless, there's plenty of food there, and there'll be a harvest to take home today, which includes courgettes, I think. Some of these purple sprouting broccoli in my last video because they snapped and been a bit chewed. And this one, well, as you can see, completely stripped. So I am going to put another one in there, but I think I'm going to have to start putting some eggshell around the base, or at least something to deter the slugs. It's been very wet, and I think that's probably going to be a continual replacement job unless I start protecting them. So I'm going to have a look at that as well. Look at those leeks. Now, leeks, of course, are susceptible to white rot, which is prevalent in my plot, but this looks okay. And fingers crossed, we haven't got any white rot in that bed. The growth on them is fantastic, and they're all, well, 1 inch plus in diameter now, which means we're going to have a good leek crop. And I love cheesy leeks. Amazing foliage we've got on the runner beans. They've really got cracking in the last week or two. And wow, there's really good clusters of beans. You can see the size of them is such that we wouldn't pick those just yet. And there's some smaller ones. So we're sort of approaching the period when we would have a glut of them all at once. That's okay, because we freeze them. And you can see they're just poised, really, ready for, I think, a very good crop. And on this side seemed to be a little bit slower, but lots of small beans ready to go. Just clusters and clusters of them. In there we've got actually a couple of decent sized ones, so maybe there is a picking to be had, because we don't want them getting too big. Once they get a bit bigger, they always get a bit stringy and a bit tough to eat, so it's always best to get them when they're nice and thin, and well, they just taste amazing. Parsnips have grown brilliantly in this wet weather, and I'm going to have to take the net off here very soon. Got a stinging nettle growing in there as well. Yeah, so they've probably just need a small weeding and then releasing from that net. And the Cavolo Nero style kale is just enormous, and there is a bit of damage in there from caterpillars, but there's also lots of great leaves. This one almost looks like it's gone to seed. It's sort of sprung into 3 different branches at the top, but it's okay. Fantastic kale this year. The celeriac that I put in early on is thickening up, and these were a bit of an afterthought, just filling some space. And I put another 6 in there, of which there is now only 3 left, and they look pretty small. You can see the bindweed just finding its way everywhere. So there's a bit of removal to go on for bindweed. But I have got other celeriac, which I put in early, and I really spent my time making sure the spacing was significant so that we got a good root. And I'm certainly seeing good roots forming on these. They've got a long way to go, but again, it won't be too long before the net comes off of that. And next to it is the Swede. These were a bit later in, and these were the first, and these are really nice and bushy now, and we've got some good formation of roots on them. So fingers crossed on the Swede. And over on the beetroot, we've got a couple that have gone to seed, but we've got some mighty healthy beetroots in there, really decent size. So we'll be doing a harvest on here fairly soon, I think. A picture of one of these cabbage up on Instagram the other day, because they've hearted up so quickly and are just looking gorgeous. So we're certainly going to be all right for cabbage. I do need to get in there and get a few weeds out, and also just clear away some of the dead leaves and damaged leaves, just so I don't give a feast to any of the slugs that are still lurking around. Show of just one dahlia off this plant, but what a beauty. Just look at that. Fantastic. And my sunflowers did come in the end, and they're looking very attractive, but I have suffered from just a dearth of slug damage in this area. It really isn't suited for growing flowers. It was a great idea, but unfortunately they get ravaged from all the slugs and snails that come out of this more wild area on my plot. This one looks like it's about to have a really good flush of flowers, which would be nice to see. I do everywhere at this time of year. It's pretty focused on weeding and sorting growth out. And in here, we've got very prolific growth on the top bench. And some of these tomatoes are just beginning to go over now. We've had so many off of these, and we've still got quite a lot. You can see just a dearth of cherry tomatoes there. And of course, loads and loads of peppers. So we're getting close to serious cropping in there. And over here, we've got some of these tomatoes now we've harvested. And there's been some enormous tomatoes, and they literally dwarf the small ones. But nonetheless, they're great for making pasta sauces and slicing up. And you can see some fairly big fruit on here, and this is Sarah Child's, and these plum tomatoes just starting to ripen, looking great. Got one there that seems to be being eaten. Let's have a quick look at him. Yep, he's been well and truly hollowed out, probably by a slug or something like that. But the tomatoes are ripening now, and we're feeding from them, which is great. And even the Latar, which is well and truly over, is managing a couple of extras for us. So that's good news. Cleaned out this bed, and the only thing that's really growing in here now is cucumbers, and there's plenty of those in there. Oh, the weight of it is such that it's wanting to fall down, but we might give it a bit more of a prop up today. And I must get these spent basil plants out and into the compost. And over here, the carrots, well, we're seeing really strong central growth now. And if we have a look down there, you can just about see what's coming, which is a fairly significant sized carrot. And yeah, I think they'll come on really nicely. Got a little bit of bindweed to remove from those. It's painful stuff, this bindweed. It's a bit of a constant job. Oboe onions, which I showed you and talked about in my last video. Wow, the size of them, pretty impressive. So I'm really hopeful for those. Taking out all the ones that seem to have leaned over and had a bit of a problem. But yeah, so they're probably my best onions. The Ailsa Craig is doing okay. And these are the shallots, which seem to have all leant over and grown rather strangely, but they're fairly significant size, so fingers crossed we'll get a crop out of those as well. Wow, the apples are certainly changing shape, getting larger. Nice to see one or two with some nice rosy red sides, and I'm definitely seeing bigger apples on there for having thinned them out. And well, fingers crossed, a bit more growing. We'll have some good eaters off of that this year. What do you think, girls? There was a couple of potatoes that have been pulled out of my potato pots, and I think they were the ones on the surface because there's some green on them, but I suspect the jackdaws are helping themselves. There's another one there, so they only tend to get the surface ones, but nonetheless, 3 potatoes down to the jackdaws. I think I might take a pot today and give us a bit of a harvest so that we've got some new potatoes to eat. The purple sprouting broccoli that I put in this bed that had the garlic in, well, it's really established, it's doing nicely, and I'm not seeming to get any of the damage that I'm getting over there on the other side of the plot. So this is a good space for this purple sprouting, and canes are ready, so we're ready for the winter winds if they come. Fingers crossed, and they'll keep going and we'll have a good crop. And again, we've got an enormous stretch of bindweed coming through here, which we'll just give a bit of a tug and get rid of. That's the only way to keep on top of it. Okay, a bit quick to get this harvest in. Well, that's a beauty, just about the right size. So we'll just work our way through this plant and see what we've got that needs to be harvested about now. Those seem to be okay. We do have a fairly big one in here that's coming out. So the latest plan for courgettes is to shred them and then squeeze the moisture out of them, put them into cake baking tray, you know, the small, a bit like a Yorkshire pudding tray, and then just dry those out in the oven, and it makes a bit of a nest, and then into there some mixed vegetables and cheese, and it makes like a little courgette cupcake. Apparently very nice. So we're gonna have a go at that, and we've got a few courgettes here to get us underway. And there's been so many good suggestions. If you want some ideas as to what to do with your glut of courgettes, then just look at the comments. About this time of year, everybody's feeding in plenty of ideas, and that's really helpful. Anything else down here? No, not this side. No, I think we're probably about done. Maybe we'll have him. And this one's harbouring a snail, so he's coming out too. Well, it's a 2-minute swap over for this broccoli. I do seem to be going through some broccoli plants. I'm glad that I grew extras, that's for sure. And later on, I'm going to come over here with some of that eggshell and just put them around. I might have to change one at the end as well. And while I'm here, I'm just going to pull out this grass because Well, as you know, the onion family does not like weeds around it. And as I was walking past here, I noticed there was a fair old sort of resurgence of grass, which is growing over from the grass pathway. And you just have to keep on top of it unless you're going to dig it all out, which I'm not going to do at this stage. So there we go. That's the worst of it. And just keeping on top of the weeds like this saves it being a big job later on. There we go. Okay, well, I'm going to take a pot of potatoes. It's always fun to take the potatoes out. You sort of hope for a bigger crop than ever. To be fair, these have been okay, not amazing, but okay. And there we are, great potatoes right from the get-go. So I'm going to work my way through here and just pick out a few to take home. Nice size. And the compost will be back into the regeneration process. So let's get that done. There we are, so there's a couple of meals there, which isn't bad. So these Charlotte, they've been fantastic this time, but quite reasonable. Some good sized potatoes. Well, you may have seen my video, what happened to my herb bed, and this is where it ended up, and in there I explain what's gone on. But I had this dilemma that in here we've got lots of branches because it's a Hugelkultur bed, and a lot of them are covered in shoots, and they're shoots of blackcurrant and privet. I'm just going to pull one up, and that shows you exactly what's going on. And the moral of the story, of course, is don't put anything in your Hugelkultur bed that's remotely live. It needs to be dead wood, rotting wood, really. And I asked, well, viewers of the channel, what should I do? Should I just take these shoots off as I see them? Or is it something a bit more major? And to be honest, the consensus was, if I leave this in there, I'll be picking out these shoots forevermore. So sadly, there's nothing more than to take out these shoots on these roots and actually remove the wood. So that's a lesson learned. It's been a journey and an experiment, but I've enjoyed it. But what I'm going to have to do next is take all of these out with the shoots and remove them. So, no putting it off. Let's get on with it. Well, gardening's all about learning lessons, and I certainly learnt a valuable one there, and well, it's been fun. So next year, hopefully, I'll get the Hugelkultur thing right. In the meantime, I'll be looking for some more rotten wood to add to that bed. I'm going to leave it just open for a while, let the elements get to it, and see if there are any other shoots that want to emerge, and then I can remove that wood as well. These Welsh onions are just going to be potted up for now, and they'll survive the winter, and I can replant them next year. I'll pop them down in the nursery under the protection of the tree. And my rosemary, which I was advised to put into a pot and would be fine, has been just perfect, and this will be going in the polytunnel as soon as it gets cold. So good times. I do hope you enjoyed the video today. If you did, click the subscribe button, click the like button, and if you want updates from me each time I upload a video, click the bell and select all. I do hope you have a great day. Diolch yn fawr.